Now we are moving to the next section, which is an exclusive book launch. The book is being launched today. It is not that it is launched somewhere else and again it is launched. And it's by one of our goals who was young and dynamic writer. I'm feeling great because he's from my village, from Kanpon, Tony Martin, and Mr. Augusto Putro. I would request both of them to come on the stage. The book is Sinful Goa, Paradise in Peril. Tony Martin is a young writer, and Tony, basically, we were colleagues earlier in Govindak Times. He started his career as a journalist with Govindak Times, then moved on to Herald, then Navin Times. But basically, he's a very good teacher. So he went to teach. He today teaches at SS Anglais High Secondary School in Mashing, Kanpon. And I believe this is his fourth book, if I'm not mistaken. Fifth book. And one of the book I had a privilege of writing, preface to the book, which is an excellent book on Kanpon, giving whole profile of Kanpon, social, cultural, economic, everything. So he's just not an author, but basically he researches and then he writes. That's his specialty. Mr. Augusto Pinto is an associate professor in Depe College, teaches English, but more than that, he has opened up the Koguni literature to the international audience by translating several literary works of Goans into English. So we have equally two teachers, but just not teachers, they are also writers here with us. And I would request Mr. Augusto Pinto initially to launch the book and then take over the session. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sandesh. Okay, let me do the orders. We are both pedagogues, so we'll be mostly standing, because we love talking to people from these podiums, and we like people to talk back to us.
And it is exactly 45 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. So, Tony, first, tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, I am professionally I'm a teacher, teaching for the last 15 years. I teach in SS Anglais High Secondary School, Mashing, Kanpon. I teach English, and besides teaching, I've been involved in a host of other things. Like I do some freelancing for local newspapers. Also, I've written exclusive stories for the Herald, Navin Times, off and on, and I am also a sort of environment activist, having initiated a host of environmental projects. Like I initiated the turtle conservation project at Galjiba beach. It is now a turtle heaven, it is called, and a lot of tourists and foreign tourists, Indian tourists visit this place to see the turtle nest. Many other movements also I was actively involved with, like Penguin Call and all this. So environment has been one of my concerns, and I also do a bit of content writing, copywriting, profile writing and all this. And I do host quizzes. I am an occasional quiz host, and I am a compere also. I do weddings, parties, and all this.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Tony. If you look at his cover, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, I'll come to you. There's a woman there. There's Sinful Goa, it's called. Paradise in Peril. Well, there are a lot of sensational things in this book. Yeah, come in, please. Look, I'll just read to you some of the essays, okay, the titles of the essays which are there in the context. Goa, Asia's prime sex resort. HIV stalks conservative households in rural Goa. Selling a heritage. Goa is for sale. Destroying the age-old comunidades. Kangon, Goa's new drug hotspot. Rapes, false rapes in section 375. Wow. There's a lot for a lot of you to chew upon if you read this book. Let's start with Tony. Come up here and read out an excerpt from, well, what should be? Kangon, Goa's new drug hotspot.
Yeah, just read out. See, all of us prefer to be in the denial mode, and whenever any problems arise, we love to conveniently dismiss them as one of incident, or not to embarrass ourselves maybe or what, but we love to deny. But the fact is that now Kankona, which has been the last frontier as far as all these drugs and other things are concerned, has been in the center of the drug storm, and the drug lords have started their operations in Kanpur, and it is one of the main transit points and supply points also. Now, I'll just read, what is shocking is the spread of drugs and stimulants beyond the coastal scene to school campuses and remote villages like Turtle Heaven, Galjiba, in what is seen by many as only the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Some students of two schools in Kankona were detained for possession of drugs. They had drugs. Drugs were found in their bags, school bags, and possession of drugs and condoms. Now, can you imagine school kids, 8th and 9th standard children, going about with drugs and condoms in their bags? This thing was reported in the papers about 3 or 4 years back, and this came as quite a shock to Kanpurkas.
Are there any students here from Kankon by any chance? Yes? That's Tony-san, right? You heard what your dad said? You think it's true? Yes? Okay. Let me ask some students here. You think what he says is credible? Yes? All of you? Is there anyone who doubts his story? Okay. Well, that's incredible, I think. If they all say this, why aren't they being caught?
Yeah,
Why are they behind bars?
in fact, Kanpana has reported a number of drug-related arrests, and the people have, some of them are still serving terms. Of course, they are, some of the cases are indefinite, they are not found their logical conclusion, but some of them are already in jail. One of the arrested persons in this drug case happens to be a panchayat member, and I think now he's out on bail or something. But arrests have been made. But what effectiveness is not what we would expect. I mean, the anti-narcotic cell and the police have to be, they have to get kicking and show that they mean business, while the drug business flourishes. The cops arrest once in a while, and then later what happens, even if the FIR is filed or case is made, charge sheet is filed or what, nobody knows, nobody bothers to follow it up. So it is just a matter of forgetting over a period of time. So how many of these cases have really gone to the logical end that people don't bother to find out?
let's go to another of his essays. Okay? It's Goa, Asia's prime sex resort. We read an excerpt from the beginning.
Yeah. A veritable cauldron of sex, booze, narcotics, gambling, corruption, crime, and sexually transmitted diseases. Welcome to Asia's new hotspot, destination Goa. That is the image this tiny hamlet on the west coast of India seems to have acquired over the years. It is a good place with a lot of lovely prostitutes. Is how we know the domestic tourist responds describing the impression of Goa, his impression of Goa.
Yeah, distressing description indeed. You know, Tony, I know.
Distressing description indeed. Perhaps it would make some Goans want to knock Vinod's nose flat for his distasteful portrayal of Goa. Many of us would feel that this man is giving a wrong impression about Goa, but that is what impression he gets. What is the cause of his getting this impression is something that we need to go deeper.
You know, Tony. Sometimes when I went through your book, I got the impression that you have been very unfaithful to your wife. I know your son is sitting here, but okay, seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you come to know? How did you get all these details?
Yeah. There are people willing to speak about this prostitution thing. I don't have to visit prostitutes to know what is happening. I mean, I have written here that some of them charge from anything from 10,000 to 25,000 for a night service. But this is not that I was unfaithful to my wife and was visiting a few prostitutes myself, which I cannot afford anyway, even if I had fancied. But people are willing to speak if they get an opportunity. I mean, I spoke to some taxi drivers, and these figures one of the taxi drivers gave me. He said, this is the present situation. I mean, whether we like to accept it, believe it or not. It is not only the taxi driver, a lot of other people also go by this fact that prostitution is happening everywhere, whether it is rural Goa or whether it is urban side of Goa. It is common knowledge that anybody will tell if you care to ask. The right people.
We've got some students from Tony's own college, SS Angle,
I welcome them heartily, and I welcome all the other students from SS Depot as a college also.
Sir, and can't confirm. ठीक है घाट करून थोडे वेळ ते काढवा होय तू सांगता तो मुंडा तुम्ही ड्रग्स चलता की prostitution चलता की हे होय Tony, what is this? Your students don't think it's true.
Yeah, the students maybe they feel embarrassed. You might ask them a question you asked me.
They didn't hear the question I asked you.
Yeah. But at least it is there at the back of their mind.
Okay. Yes, because so Kanpur is not that bad a place as Tony rightly tries to defend. Yeah, by the way, if anybody wants to interact with Tony at any time, feel free. Put your hand up and feel free. But the last part of the session will be for your response. So if you got any questions, keep them ready. Okay, but if you really want to ask him something, you can surely interrupt anytime you like. Okay, can we go ahead? You tell a nice anecdote about rapes, about the laws about rape. Would you like to tell that anecdote to the student, or would you like to read it out?
Are all of you aware that the rape laws have undergone a big change?
Yes.
Students particularly, are you aware that rape laws have undergone a change?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll come to that later. I'll just read out this thing to you. One morning, the husband returns after several hours of fishing and decides to take a nap. Although not familiar with the lake, the wife decides to take the boat out. The wife of the fisherman decides to take the boat out. She motors out a short distance, anchors, and reads a book. Along comes the game warden in his boat. Game warden is like a cop, keeping a watch on what is happening. He pulls up alongside the woman and says, "Good morning, ma'am. What are you doing?" "Reading a book," she replies, thinking, "Isn't that obvious?" "You are in a restricted fishing area," he informs her. "I am sorry, officer, but I am not fishing. I am reading," she insists. "Yes, but you have all the equipment. For all I know, you could start any moment. I have to take you in and write you up. Make you fine. If you do that," now this is the catchphrase, please listen carefully. "If you do that, I'll have to charge you with sexual assault," says the woman. "But I haven't even touched you," says the game warden. "That's true, but if you have all the equipment, for all I know, you might start anytime." Okay. So I'll connect that with what I have to say. The above conversation says it all. When a crime is so loosely defined, and when the law is severely biased towards the woman, and when the sole testimony of the female victim is enough to charge or convict the accused, it is very tempting for a mischievous woman to misuse it.
Thanks very much, Tony, for that. But seriously, I'm going to play devil's advocate on this. Do you think, okay, as you seem to suggest, do you think that a woman would be likely to go to the police or go to a sexual harassment cell, which is another act, which really is helpful to women in these kind of cases, in normal circumstances? I think it would require a pretty dumb woman to go to the cops and say, "So and so man has raped me." So the point of these laws is that the onus is on the man to prove that he is not guilty. Of course, the reason for that is obvious, because every time these kind of cases go to the courts, you find that the defense attorneys, the defense lawyers go and strip them, naked almost. They go deep into their personal lives. They simply tear them apart. So by putting the onus on the man to defend himself, don't you think that the government is doing the right thing?
No, the onus has to be on the man, because they are the perpetrators of the crime. But how far the cases are genuine? What I find very funny is that when I read in newspapers, sometimes reports, one male and female have been going about together for as good as 6 months. They have been going what you call steady, and then suddenly the female cries rape. That I was induced into sex by this man because he promised to marry me, and or something like he promised me a job, or he promised me something. I mean, females are sensible as well. They, unless the female is a minor or something, females should be sensible and reasonable enough to see what is what. And if they can go with a guy for 6 months and then try rape, that makes no sense, in my opinion. because it is really something funny, like that is what I think.
I think the majority of this audience is consists of women. Let's take a poll. How many of you think that a woman, maybe not yourself, but some woman, would go to the police and cry rape unless it was really, unless it's really, really very shrewd? Put your hands up. How many would you think would go and do what Tony is saying? No hands?
We didn't get your question.
Okay, the question is like this. A woman wants to abuse the rape laws. How many women, or how many among you would go and abuse it in this way? Go to the police and say that they were raped.
No one will say yes to this. No one.
We won't say, yeah. No,
The question is not correct.
Okay. How would you put it?
No.
I think
Question it should be whether the rape laws are susceptible for abuse.
Okay. How many of you think that the rape laws are susceptible to abuse? Nobody has an opinion?
And how many things that they are not susceptible?
Again, I'll borrow his question. How many of you think it is not susceptible? How many of you don't have an opinion?
either way, see, one of the questions you have to answer. It cannot be that you do not want to commit yourself to either of the questions. That cannot happen. You have to make a commitment to the first question or the later one.
She wouldn't go. I mean, she wouldn't go and expose herself to this if she wasn't raped. I don't think she'd take all she'd go and expose herself. If she was molested or raped, even then the woman wouldn't want to go to the police station. Why would she go and go to the police and draw more attention? I don't think she'd go if she wasn't molested.
Actually, there was this famous viral video. I mean, that says the story. There was this famous viral video from Rohtak. Two sisters beating those three guys, right? And those guys were put in the lockup for a few days. And now the story which has emerged, there are 6 women who have, come ahead and said the actual story was one of the guys bought a ticket for an old woman. And she was allotted a seat number 11. So these 2 sisters were sitting on the seat number 11. So he goes and says that please vacate, this is the seat for this old woman. And they started to shout and punch those guys. So these kind of abuses are, it's not that woman has to be of a loose character.
Yeah, thanks.
This could be just
There are rare instances like perhaps what you have mentioned. Okay, although I think the jury is still out on that particular Rohtak case. We don't know again whether the person who came there and made these allegations was making them, genuinely. We are not absolutely sure about that either. So the point I was trying to make to you in general is this: whatever else you may say about Tony, you may like him or you may dislike him. Okay. But one thing about him and his writings is this: you got to have an opinion. You can't be neutral about his works. Okay, we'll go to another. His book is a collection of essays of all the controversial things that are there in Goa. There are several. So could we take another excerpt which for you to read? Yeah.
See, there is one story. This selling Goa is for sale. The way Goa has opened up itself to selling its properties is really something that should worry each one of us. In Bardes itself, 572 properties have been bought, measuring 21.24 lakh square meters. This is only about one taluka in the north. in all the other talukas as well, there are several foreigners buying properties indiscriminately, and FEMA has only remained in paper. For Foreign Exchange Management Act, this has only remained in paper. So, what is happening? That is, I have tried to draw attention to what on this subject about how Goa is being sold without any sort of care or plan.
Okay. We've got just about 5 minutes to go. I'll give time for 2 questions from anyone in the audience on any of the issues that, yes.
Yeah. Sir, you are giving the story as a very negative story, but are you suggesting any solutions or any long-term approach, or is it only to make us feel dismal and sad about others?
No, I have no definite solutions. In all these essays, I do not make any suggestions for any positive outcome or effect. I am only making observations of what I feel strongly about. So I am not trying to say we should do this or we should do that to counter this and counter that. I am not playing that role. What on these issues that I have listed here, I feel very strongly about, and I have put them together. That's it. So it is for each one of us to decide what is reflected here.
Yeah, but some
Yeah.
people might say that you are trying to make royalties out of unnecessary information.
You know, it's also the fact that, you know, the moment you start posing a question, there is a solution looming about somewhere. You know? If you don't ask questions, then the status quo will remain, whether with mining, whether with the building which you were talking about, okay, with the selling of properties, those questions will remain. Okay, one last question for anybody.
So, we have already got that for Goa. You know, whenever we say Goa, there's always a picture, you know, the stereotypical that, you know, Goa is full of, you know, people in Goa, they drug addict, you know, they always die for sex, all this thing. So, through your essays, you are you are just revealing out all the bad things, and you said no solutions for it. So, why can't you even add solutions to it? I mean, you know, to your writings? Because so I'm a residential, though my native is from Tamil Nadu. So, you know, all my relatives who have a staff, I mean, they come here for tourist season, and they always have this, picture of Goa around. They find a lot of hippies around. You know, even Goans might be, a kind of the circles, all of, a kind of loose type. Yeah, and when I come here, they always ask me, like, when whatever I heard, in Facebook and all those things, I always thought that Goa is so and so. But when I came here and I saw the reality, it's not so. So are you trying to prove it that, whatever stereotypes they're having is not the...
See, what happens is we don't want to get out of our comfort zones. We are happy with the positive picture. See, when people visit Goa, they focus primarily on the architectural heritage, the beauty, the beaches, and everything that is glamorous and fun. Going beyond this facade, you discover the real Goa. I have tried to focus on these issues. Perhaps this is the only negative book on Goa other than the Blue Mountains, which is also quite critical about Goa. But here I have tried to focus on what is beyond the facade of beauty, glamour, architectural heritage, and everything that makes a rosy picture of Goa. It is time we look deeper and find out what ails Goa. Otherwise, when things go to a point, it will be only with a sense of regret that we will think about ourselves that we did not do something that we could have done. We have people like Dr. Claude Alvarez here who has been fighting environmental issues almost single-handedly, and we need more and more of organizations like Goa Foundation to fight issues when we can fight them. When whole of Goa is sold, then there is hardly anything we will be able to do.
Thanks a lot, Tony. And thanks a lot to all those of you who have come here and made it a really nice occasion. I'm sure Tony will feel quite warm about this well-filled hall. After this session, he'll be around. I'm sure you'll like to purchase his book. It's just 200, plus you get a discount, and I'm sure Tony will be happy to talk more about the stories in his book. So, all of you, thanks so very much, and thanks to the organizers.